All right, I'm going to get started. Hello all, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to welcome everyone to our Women in Cybersecurity Alumni Identity Talk, brought to you by the Offices of Career Solutions, Inclusion and Diversity Engagement, and Development and Alumni Relations. My name is Sydney Vicchino, and I will be your moderator for the program today. I'm a sophomore studying cybersecurity at the Penn State College of IST. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome our panel of incredible women in tech. First, we have Nicole Buitrago, a 2018 graduate of IST, currently a cybersecurity consultant at PwC, if you want to wave, Nicole. Next, we have Victoria Gibilterra, a graduate of 2016 who now works as a cyber defense manager with Avanade, if you want to wave, Nicole, or Victoria, I'm sorry. Next, we have Himanshi Patel, a graduate of 2017 who works as a senior information security analyst at Erie Insurance Group, if you want to wave. I'd like to introduce now Annie Schoen, a 2019 graduate who currently works at Geico as the head of the Cyber Administration and Management Office. And finally, I will introduce Nandita Suresh, our most recent graduate of 2021, who is an associate at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I'd like to welcome you ladies again, and thank you for being part of such an amazing panel. But before we start with the questions, would each of you share a little more about yourself to our audience? Annie, you could start it off, and then whoever else wants to pick up.
Sure. Thrilled to be here. Thank you all for the invitation and your time over lunch today. For most of you who are on the East Coast, I would assume. So I graduated from Penn State again in 2019. I was an SRA major, an IST minor, as well as a Spanish minor. I joined Geico straight out of college, joining a program called the Emerging Leaders Program. That was a rotational program. I started off in cybersecurity, went to data governance. I did a rotational as a developer, and then I realized I still wanted to stay in cyber, so I went right on back. From that program, I posted out to become the manager of a security awareness and training team. Since then, I have expanded my responsibilities to also include portfolio management, which is kind of budgeting, contracts, forecasting for cybersecurity, as well as talent management, which is recruiting, hiring, development program that we have specifically in cybersecurity, and still staying over the security awareness and education and training team. Been really enjoying my time at Geico. We have a new CISO who joined last year, and he's really pushing us to develop the program, and it's been a steep learning curve, but a really great experience. So I will leave it at that for all of the additional questions.
Victoria, you can go now.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2016 from Penn State with a degree in SRA. I also minored in Spanish, so we are very similar. I love that. From when I graduated, I started to work at Aetna. It's a health insurance company. I started in their IT leadership development program and really as an engineer. So I worked through, most of my time was spent in the SOC, incident response. I also did a lot of work in security architecture and cloud security as well. I stayed with them for about 5 years. And then about 2 years ago, switched over to the consulting side of things and now work for Avanade. It's a joint venture by Microsoft and Accenture. I came in as a consultant and moved on to leadership about a year ago and have been really enjoying it. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Perfect. Himanshi, do you want to talk?
Absolutely. So Himanshi Patel, again, as Annie and Victoria Nicole said, thank you for having us here today. I graduated in 2017. I did dual majors, so SRA and IST, and then I went back for my graduate certificate. So I graduated in 2019 with my master's in cybersecurity from Penn State World Campus. I've been with Erie since 2016, so I did my internship here, and then joined right out of college. I was also able to work throughout the school year as well. So my senior year at Penn State, I was also working for Erie part-time. And then at the moment, I do a lot around like incident response, ransomware preparedness, insider threat, forensic and HR investigations, any and everything you can think of under a security operations center. I also led our affinity network. It's type of an employee resource group. So I used to lead it for our Asian Pacific affinity network. So a lot around diversity, equity, and inclusion as well.
Wonderful. Nicole, would you like to talk a little about yourself?
Yep. So I'm Nicole Buitrago. I graduated Penn State with a dual major, similar as Himanshi, in December 2018. And I interned with PwC twice before joining full-time in August 2019. I've been here ever since. I'm a senior associate working in the cybersecurity practice. I do consulting. A lot of my work has been around gap assessments, NIST assessments, third-party risk management, a lot of different cyber-related areas. What about me?
Perfect. And last but not least, Nandita.
Yeah, so like everyone said, thanks so much for having us over today. I'm really excited about this. My name's Nandita Suresh, and I graduated from Penn State in December 2021 with a bachelor's in cybersecurity analytics and operations, is what it was called, with a focus in law and policy. So I just recently celebrated my 1-year anniversary at PwC, same as Nicole, where I'm an associate, part of our larger cyber risk and reg practice, but more specifically in our data risk and privacy practice. So my work has been focused on helping clients reasonably and responsibly manage their data and tackle privacy compliance, right? So helping them build and maintain technology-driven privacy programs and operations. And of course, all of that is in response to very key privacy regulations that are out there today, like CCPA, CPRA, GDPR. I'm sure that you guys have probably heard those initials somewhere in your studies or out in the real world. So that's really where my focus is today.
Wonderful. So thank you all for being here once again, and you all have such incredible accomplishments. So we will definitely be talking about those careers and accomplishments throughout the rest of this webinar. But just some quick housekeeping notes before we begin. If anyone in the audience has any questions for the panelists, you can feel free to share them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Rita will be regularly checking those throughout the program. So if you have a question, drop it in and we will definitely try to get those answered before the program ends. And also, Kimberly just dropped a lot of the panelists' LinkedIns in the chat. So if you want to take a look at those, those will be available for you to look at as well. So now let's just get right into it and start with the first question. So the question is, can you share with us about your journey in choosing to study and work in the cyber industry? And what are some of your role models or inspirations in technology or in your specific field or community today, and why? And each of you can take time to answer that question. So whoever wants to go first.
I can go ahead and get started. Sorry, I have the Q&A open, so I was trying to move the window so I could unmute myself. So I chose to study cybersecurity, funnily enough, because Edward Snowden happened when I was still in high school. And I thought, that was quite interesting debacle that we found ourselves in. And then I had a couple mentors, like my US history teacher and my tennis coach, actually, who encouraged me to work with computers and consider information technology as a degree. I chose security because, again, I was kind of inspired by that stance. But, what really, in my rotational program, what really kept me in security is the fact that I think it's a little niche part of IT with some specialized set of skills that make it an interesting challenge to ensure that IT is secure and protected, and ensuring that security is a part of everyone's job. So I've enjoyed those challenges and trying to, make sure our associates don't click on phish emails and trying to train them on what's really important for them. that's been kind of a big thing for me, is when you see it click for someone, they get the part of security that's really important. And then I have a couple of mentors, both within Geico and actually Rita. We chat a couple times a year, so she's been a great mentor for me as well. But I have a couple of managers and directors in Geico who I can rely on for questions, and turn to them when things are getting tough and look for inspiration. So they've been really beneficial mentors for me, really great in coaching, and I've had great experiences so far.
I can jump in next. I think for me, so I actually started school and was studying actuarial science. I thought I was going to be an actuary. I did it for almost 2 years and was not enjoying it, frankly. So I actually had a peer who was in SRA, and he was like, you should try it out. A bunch of the classes will kind of convert over. You get to keep that analytic side, but I think you'll have more fun with it. And I'm so glad I switched. As soon as I switched, I was like, yeah, this is more fun for me. I think, a lot of people look at cybersecurity and think it's such, it is a really small part of IT, but within cybersecurity, there are so many different areas you can be knowledgeable in and learn about. So I liked that there was a lot of options for me to kind of move around and see what would fit best for me. And also, frankly, I wanted a marketable degree. I wanted to make sure I could graduate college and get a job. I think what's great about the security world is there will always be a need. So there's a great benefit with that. I think as far as mentors go, some of my best mentors are, when I first started at Aetna, there was 2 females who were on our leadership team, which was, at the time, 2 females in leadership was crazy, like very large. To have a single female in leadership was, a big deal. And they really helped pave the way for me. It's a very male-dominated field. It's very rare to be on a team with more than 1 female. But finding those females that you can confide in has been game-changing for me. It's really helped me feel connected to the industry, not feel so much like an outsider, and helped with imposter syndrome. I think that's something that will always play a factor in almost anyone's career. I don't know many people who don't have it, but getting connected with women in the industry who kind of have like minds of you, understands what you're going through and have been through because they've done it too, has just really helped me connect and grow in my career.
I can go next. I think my story was pretty unique because honestly, I was inspired by a TV show. It's called Criminal Minds, and there's a character on it, and her name was Penelope Garcia. And I think what inspired me about her was when you typically see TVs or movies, right? People in cybersecurity, people in IT, they're always guys, and they're always like these very nerdy, like techie guys. And so watching her on that show be such a crucial part of like that team where she was still helping catch criminals and all that fun stuff. But again, she was this like very fun, energetic, just person to begin with. So even though, again, totally fictional character, I was like, hey, I could probably do this, right? And so started taking SRA classes, and it fit. One of my friends from college who took classes with me is actually on the participant call list, Nicole Buitrago, but her and I started this journey freshman year, and we've just like grown in our professions. So she's definitely one of the people that I look up to. A lot of the professors throughout Penn State have also inspired me. Mike Hills, if any of you have taken his classes, he was definitely one of those people who was like, go out there and do it. Like you can do it, right? And then as I moved into my professional career, again, mentors and people just that came along, because you'll have those challenges with people and they're going to be like, it's fine. You're not going to succeed or whatever. And it does happen. But then you also have the people who are, back there supporting you. So they always inspire me. So yeah.
I can go next. I honestly chose this career path kind of early on in middle school. I always knew I wanted to do something with technology. I just wasn't sure what exactly. And then I just started realizing, my brother's actually 4 years older than me, and he also went to Penn State and did IST and SRA. So just kind of having him and his experience was really nice for me. It made me want to do that. I saw that there was job security in it. I saw that it paid well. I also saw that there's also job flexibility. I know a lot of us probably work from home now, but a few years ago that wasn't the case. But I knew that in this job we had that possibility where we could work from home, and that's something that really attracted me to this field.
Nandita, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think I'm the last one there. So for me, cyber, let alone like STEM, wasn't something that I was always interested in. Like if you asked me 10 years ago, I would have never really listed that as one of my like potential interests. But around like senior year of high school, it was just like one of those things that I looked up at the news one day, and then I looked up the very next day and the next day, and nonstop, like I would see coverage of cyber related attacks, right? And just how devastating it was for like millions of people. And that was something that really devastated me personally, and piqued my curiosity and just like my interest as to how is this even possible, right? Like it's not something I ever really thought of. And around the same time, Penn State was actually hosting like a Women in Tech. It was like a day/weekend event. So that was the first time I actually headed up to Penn State, and I was like, going through that entire weekend with an open mind with other female high school students, and professors, who were teaching IST, SRI, Cyber, all the classes at that time. And I think that was really like my defining moment, like what really solidified my decision to not only choose cyber, but to choose it, to study it at Penn State. I just really fell in love with how like inspiring and encouraging like my future peers were and my professors were. And so like that's how that happened. And in going through my classes, right, in the 4 years, I definitely thrived in some classes more than others, as people tend to do. And I really enjoyed like my privacy and law related classes. So those were the topics that I was really gushing about in like my interviews, specifically for like PwC. And I think that the partners and everyone who were interviewing me noted that passion. And so when I joined, I was just immediately placed into that practice. So I think for me, it's a little difficult to like pinpoint a specific event or a group of people. I just had been witnessing a lot of world events, and I had a lot of encouraging people in my life, a support system at home. Both my parents are IT, at Penn State, all the professors that were there. And now even at my place of work, there are a lot of encouraging female coworkers who are always there backing me up, pushing me forward, leading me in the right direction. So it's a culmination.
Perfect. Those are wonderful answers. And I could definitely agree as a student here at Penn State. The professors here and the faculty and staff do a great job of pushing us through the program and setting us in a route to success. So thank you all for sharing your stories. We do have a question here from the chat. This is a general question for everybody. How do your companies support you as a woman in tech? And then a question specifically for Himanshi. You mentioned being involved in your company's affinity groups. What did you gain from joining an affinity group, and how did they help you as an employee and individual if they did? So if Himanshi, you want to start with that, and then everyone could tag along with how your companies support you as a woman in tech.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of the question, I'll bring up the scenario. What happened to me, I want to say about 2-3 years ago. So we're on a call, and we work with companies all the time, right? And so I was on a call with this tech company, and I'm saying like, hey, you guys were compromised. And they're like, no, we weren't. And we were like, yeah, you were. We have, we've got logs, we've got this and that. And one of the gentlemen on the phone, he's like, I've been in IT since 1986. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I was like, actually, here's the proof, right? And on that call, we had our lawyers and our privacy folks with us. And the majority of the people from Erie that were on that call were male. And they all like stood behind me. They're like, no, you have to do what she's doing. So I think building that support system, it's also important to have leadership that will listen to you. So when I joined my team in the role that I'm in at the moment, we did not have women. I was the first one on our team in the role that I currently was in, but I was able to mentor and coach two other women who work with me now, who are as my equals. And so people who will listen to you, and that's how like the company supports me. To answer the second question, honestly, it made me step out of my comfort zone because I was part of APAN, the Asian Pacific Affiliate Network, since I started at Erie, so 2016, 2017. But then taking on that leadership role, I was pretty much in charge of leading this 200 people. You could call it a club, right? Since we're at Penn State. And doing different events, bringing in difficult topics, because I always like to call Erie as a bubble that people live in, right? We're very comfortable, we're very, thankful for the life that we have. There's also people who live in very harsh difficulties who were able to either migrate to Erie, PA, start working at Erie Insurance and whatever. So bringing in those events, connecting, Erie Insurance employees to sometimes the harsh realities of the world was it was challenging, but it was also so rewarding. Last year, actually, we placed number 10 out of the top 25 employee resource group in the country. So we were awarded like a plaque and everything like that. And I was like, this is my hard work, like all, again, on a national level type of thing. So it was so rewarding. And I highly recommend everyone join one or start one.
If anyone wants to continue answering the question, how do your company support you as a woman in tech? But also we have a follow-up if anyone wants to answer this as well. More broadly, with the disparity of women in tech, what can men do to support and elevate our female colleagues?
Yeah, I can probably take on that follow-up question there. And I think some of it relates back to Himanshi's story herself. But I think one thing that men can do is check hidden biases, right, that they have, be aware of situations around them, check those biases, and even externally, right? So like in the example of Himanshi, like her coworkers noticed that she was being treated a certain way by the client, and that was something they registered. And they don't have to like put their foot down and like make a big scene of it, whatever. We're not like looking for that sort of thing, right? But just showing that they support her, right, and adding value, right? They make it known that she is adding value to this conversation and you should be listening to her. So I think just checking those biases, because it's not always conscious, it's not always like malicious or something they're actively, trying to participate in, but just being more aware of those situations, I think would be such a big benefit.
I would, absolutely agree with that. I actually have an example myself. We are doing an interview process at Geico called Power Day, which, we have interviewees go through 6 hours worth of interviewers with about 7 or 8 different people. So it's a lot for the interviewers, but we're just hiring for a director of risk management. And, he was doing a very nice job in his interview, but I was focusing a bit on culture fit. And he at some point started to, I don't want to say talk down, but, being a young woman, especially in leadership, I could get the sense that he wasn't fully believing me in my position. So when we met in the consensus call to talk about the interview, a bunch of people with more experience, more technical exposure were, raving about him. And I took it as an opportunity to stand up and say, well, I have a little bit of a different perspective. And then I was actually messaged on the side and, one of our senior directors said, hey, I want you to reiterate that point, because the whole point of Power Day is that everyone gets a chance to see what this associate would be like. And so then at the end, I, even brought up my point again. And then just today in the office, because I live across the street from the office, the hiring manager even said, I really appreciate you standing up. It's difficult when, everyone is agreeing and saying all of that. But, you brought in a valuable perspective that I think, we really need to consider. So having that support both back end when it happens, but then the follow-up is really great to be noticed. And so I would encourage the men and even women, with your fellow women as they speak up, to appreciate those different points of view. That's the whole point of DEI, is to really celebrate the diversity and focus on trying to bring in different points of view. So really reiterating that, check your biases, I think is extremely important.
So we can move on to the next question, unless anyone else wants to respond to that one. Was there a time during your career or life as a woman in cyber that stands out as to when you were feeling the most uncertain about your life, your career, anything like that? And if so, describe that situation and how you moved forward.
I can start off with my response here. And Rita knows this story well because she was one person that I turned to for some advice as I went through this. But stepping into this role of head of cyber administration management office, there's a lot of pressure. I work very closely with our CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. I sit in his office most days of the week and get to learn a lot about his perspective. And it was really tough at first to step into that role and have that pressure, have that visibility. Fly close to the sun brings a lot of heat. So I turned to my mentors and I talked to them through my frustrations and saw some of my options of, do you stay at Geico? Do you try to interview for new positions? But I focused on trying to dig in my heels and make the most of my situation. So with that, I've been in this position for about a year, and just yesterday we were even saying, it's probably time. What else are you interested in? So having that mentor and support, not only at Geico, who can help me expand my career, but that I can turn to outside of Geico and bounce ideas off of and, get that support is extremely valuable. So it's definitely a recent one, but it was really beneficial to, again, have that network to go back to and rely on.
Yeah, I can share my experience. Oh, sorry, I think I cut someone off.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So for me, like one of my biggest uncertain moments in my life happened in the past year. So right after graduating, I thought it would be really cool, right, to start my new job in a new city, just like a new environment, everything new, right? So I had very little time to think about that decision, but I decided to move to Boston. So as soon as I graduated, I was up in Boston within less than a month, starting my new job. And I think very soon that uncertainty hit me, both personally and professionally, because I was in a place that I don't really have any connections. I should preface that by saying I didn't know anyone in Boston, let alone Massachusetts, right? And then I was starting to experience uncertainty just in am I the right fit for the job? Am I doing things the right way? Am I meeting expectations, right? Imposter syndrome is real. I know we've talked about that already a bit, and it's something I felt at the time and still do to this day at times. But throughout those events, I think I was just trying to do my best at everything I could. And I made sure to keep a pulse check on how I was feeling, right? And I think that helped in certain ways because at least at work, that uncertainty started to, lessen day by day because, you learn to adjust at work. No one comes in day one knowing everything and having everything figured out. And I ended up having a really good support system who, filled with people who are encouraging me and giving me feedback. So I think in that way, I was able to sort of come out of it myself. But if we go back to personal life, right? Moving to Boston, I did the same thing where I was trying to do my best to acclimate. I was keeping a pulse check as to how I was feeling. But to be totally honest, I'm a bit of an introvert. So I wasn't really putting in that much effort into trying to acclimate into the environment. And eventually, as I just kept checking in on myself, I realized that, Boston maybe isn't the city for me, and that's okay. Some places just aren't the right fit for you. And when I was able to admit that to myself, I was able to make a decision to fix that. And for me, that was personally moving to Philly. So I'm closer to friends now. I'm closer to family now. I'm still able to experience like a new city vibe, right? But one that's more right for me. So that was sort of my experience there.
I think for me, a pivotal moment where I felt really uncertain, I had been at Aetna for 5 years, as I had previously spoken about. About 4 years into it, I was getting bored, which feels terrible to say, but I had kind of been, working with the same people, doing similar jobs for a while, and felt I was ready for a new challenge. So there was like a gut feeling of like, I think it might be time to try a new company. And that felt terrifying for me. I had built up such a strong network at my current company. I had leadership who really advocated for me. I felt really supported. So overall, there wasn't necessarily something bad with my previous company. I just felt I was ready for a change, frankly, and I wanted that new challenge. So one of the things that really helped me navigate in that time is I spent, for my 5 years at that current role or that current company, I had really built a strong network outside of the company, which had really helped me to be able to have a sounding board to be able to talk to about, am I ready for a company change? And that's something you don't necessarily want to speak about internally with your peers or your management or your leadership who supports you. So having a sounding board outside of my company really helps me. So having a big network is something I always like to reiterate on and make sure people understand that, you can build your network internally, but externally as well. And they will always kind of help you out when you need in those like tricky situations. Ultimately, what helps me kind of make that final push is I talked to my, sounding board outside of my company and really just had a gut feeling it was time for me to try something new, and trusting that gut feeling, even though I was literally terrified to go from being like an engineer or practitioner to the consulting world. I just was like, I don't know, like, what if I don't like it? But I just kept reminding myself that in my, my gut feeling, that gut leadership that I have, I'm ready for that next step. And I'm so glad I did it. So I always recommend, if you're in a tricky situation, one, always build up your network so that you have people internally, externally that you can chat with. But then two, really trust your gut. I think as females in tech, we have a little bit, I would say, stronger intuition. We're good at listening to like that internal voice within our head. So listen to that, and it'll lead you to where you need to go.
Wonderful. If anyone doesn't have anything else to add to that question, I just want to remind the audience members, if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A and we will ask them throughout the program. So now I'm going to ask a different kind of question, more about like your education. So if you could go back and redo one thing in college, what would it be?
I don't mind, because I was just kind of talking about it. I wish I would have networked a little bit more within the College of IST. I think because I switched over, almost about halfway through my schooling, I missed some of that networking opportunities with peers, with professors. I think there's really, the community within the College of IST is so, so strong. And there's so many great resources that you can tap on, that building that network even in college will help you tenfold once you're in your career. So that is the one thing I wish I would have done better looking back on it. But one thing that's great is that we have a great alumni program, so it's never too late to network. So lots of opportunities out there.
I'll piggyback off of Victoria's. Yeah, definitely. I was very involved in a lot of networking events, but I didn't always follow up. So I would connect with people and then not follow up. I think that's definitely an important step that I would have done differently looking back. And just learning how to take better notes, because you're going to be in calls and you're going to have to take notes for a while, and just learning how to pick out those key things to write down and then how to turn it into good takeaways is definitely something I would have done differently.
Mine's going to be a little bit different and a little bit specific, but I would have taken the Security Plus certification back when I was in college because it was kind of a requirement of joining our cybersecurity program within the first 6 months. You have to take it. But I was trying to, adapt to living in DC. I was trying to adapt to having a professional job, trying to make friends. And I didn't really want to spend that time studying outside of work. And so much of the content in that certification is what you are learning in school. So it really helps you, I think, as you are looking for internships, looking for jobs. It helps when you have that certification. And then you're also kind of a step ahead of everyone when you have that. And you can kind of consider, all right, what do I want to do after Security Plus? So again, mine's a little bit niche, but I just wish I had done that so I could have had a little bit more freedom when I first started in the workforce.
So another question to kind of go with that. What kind of advice would you give your younger selves now that you're successful women in STEM?
I can go first for this one. I think don't ever be afraid to ask for help. I know for me growing up, right, asking for help wasn't just in my nature. Even like failing, right, wasn't in my nature. But then when you get to the real world, you fail, right? You need help. And so that was such a big reminder of like, you don't know everything and it's okay to ask for help. And the other one that I kept on reminding myself was, you've worked so far, you've worked so hard, got to continue, right? There may be challenges, there may be people who are challenges, there may be even careers that may be challenges, but you got to just get through it, right? You got to keep on supporting yourself. And to piggyback on the last question, also look for mentors who are currently in your position, right? So when I was in college, I had made connections with people at Erie Insurance, but I never really followed up on it, like Nicole said. So when I moved to Erie, PA, didn't know anyone here, I had no friends, no nothing, but I wish I would have like followed up with those people so I could have gotten to know maybe some of the niches of like EVPA or even how hard life is after college, because no one prepares you for it. You're just thrown into it. And I think like those little things would have helped, but it's all good because now I get to help others. So.
I would say don't be afraid of speaking up. And I sometimes as a woman, when you speak up and you stand your ground, there's a word that people like to call you. But I've learned to get over that and just understand that, men have a little bit more freedom where they get to be firm in their stances. And it's helped me build my confidence. And understand that, trusting my gut is the right move. And if I don't speak up, if I don't trust my gut, it harms not only me, but it can harm others in the company. So, building that confidence is very important, I think.
So I'll ask another question that kind of goes with what you were just saying, Annie. What are barriers, both visible and invisible, that discourage women from pursuing a career in technology or cybersecurity? And what can we as educators and industry professionals do to encourage more women into considering this field?
I think one of the barriers when applying to jobs is if you as a woman feel like you don't meet every single thing on that list of requirements, that often just deters us from applying, and it shouldn't. Like those are kind of more like nice to haves and not to take them so literally. Just apply for the job if you want it, or if you think you kind of qualify, just apply.
I think too, a barrier is that you don't see a lot of people like you. You're going to be in rooms where you might be the only female, which is tough. But finding those other females that you can connect with is so important to build those relationships and not feel so isolated. Also, speaking that to your leadership who might be all male, that, you know, sometimes I enter rooms and I'm the only person and I feel it. I'm the only female and I'll notice it. Just so they're aware, I can be like, oh, well, guess what? We actually have a female leader over in this area or whatever you can connect with, or, you know, peers that you can connect with. So just recognizing that you will sometimes feel like the only one. That's okay, though. There's ways to get connected so that you aren't only feeling like the only one. And I think as soon as we can start acknowledging that more, it'll be easier to bring more females into the industry, because it's a hard sell to say, yeah, you'll be the only one in the room. But we can work through that. There's other ways to not feel like the only one.
One barrier that I think is quite interesting is the difference between emotion and passion. You know, a lot of times, you know, I'll get in a meeting and there's a man who's getting real angry, and, you know, people see that as passionate, but it's absolutely emotional. But, you know, women are typically the only ones that are labeled as emotional because we express our passion in different ways. And I think it's important to, you know, try to understand the differences there and encourage yourself to follow your passions with that. The other thing that I think is really important is trying to build your network with the women in your company. Like we have a women in cyber WebEx space. And what we do is we'll pass along books or, you know, interesting videos. Like Brene Brown is a huge one that one of our managers really likes. And you know, reading that material and trying to absorb it and bring it into your work is really beneficial, which is kind of where I have the idea of emotion and passion very closely intertwined. That I think, you know, if we talk about it more, we can, you know, start to overcome that barrier.
Yeah, I agree with all of these. One of the barriers that my friends and I saw, so I have friends in like different positions at Erie, right? Who may be in network security admins or network admins. Again, very male-dominated jobs, not particularly in cyber, but in the operations area. And I remember in the beginning when we're in different like leadership programs and stuff like that, when we'd get into these meetings, it'd be like, oh, hey, are you here to take notes? Or, hey, could you like set up this meeting, et cetera, et cetera. And again, no one tells you about that. And so you could either sit there and be like, yeah, I'll take notes, while also trying to do your job as a network admin. Or you could say, no, actually, I'm here to lead this project, right? And so going back to what everyone was saying, like, you don't have to be that perfect candidate for that job. You also have to like speak up for yourself, to advocate for yourself, because no one else will. But as soon as people start seeing you advocate for yourself and others, that's when people will jump in. Just one quick thing, that I took a leadership, or it was a woman in leadership class that I had to take, and the instructor purposely named it Woman in Leadership because if she didn't, it would be mostly males in that class. So she named it Woman in Leadership, and then she told us different like tips and tricks, if you will. But one of the things that she always told me was, whenever you're in a meeting and it's mostly men, sit at the front of the table or sit at the table, right? Because when you're in conference rooms, there may be chairs in the back, but sit at that front of the table and then always ask a question, because that's what's going to, like, all the guys are talking, right? But when you ask that question, it's to the presenter, to everyone else in the room, they're going to remember that question. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you all just said. I definitely feel some of those barriers in even the classroom at college. The world are, is full, or the tech world is full of men, and it can be a little daunting, especially for like first year students that are females going into their tech classes and seeing that they're like one of 3 students. So everything that you have all just said is wonderful to hear, and how you've overcome it and all your advice is so great to hear. I'd like to also get more into your careers. There's a question about, is your company hiring? And if they are, what kind of jobs are they hiring for? Or what kind of jobs do you recommend students like me would apply for?
Okay, I'm going to selfishly take this one first and really plug Geico here. We have what we call a cybersecurity development program that we are specifically look for recent college grads. And it's a 2-year rotational program just in cybersecurity. We start off within my organization, but then after that, you are welcome to pick any one of our 7 towers, as we call them in cybersecurity. And you have 6-month rotations in each of those teams. But we really focus on building those technical skills. We really focus on giving you the opportunity to see how vast cybersecurity is and then figure out where your passions are. I've had a couple of mentees in the program that have had huge successes. We have a couple of people who sometimes graduate from the program early if they find their home team and they're doing really well. So that's where we are specifically recruiting our junior talent for cybersecurity here at Geico. And I would love to see some more Penn State grads. So I'll stop now, but I had to plug that real quick.
PwC also has a few open positions. So we currently have some open for summer of 2024, so next summer. These are internship positions. We have cybersecurity consulting intern, technology consulting intern, and managed services intern. And all of those have a deadline of this Thursday at midnight. So apply, only apply to one, but apply if you'd like to before the deadline. And if you do get accepted to those internships, you also get to go to the Women's Consulting Experience this summer. It's in Arizona. It's like a 3-day consulting experience that you get to connect with other women that are in your same field. And it's a really great eye-opening experience. Our deadline is Thursday, though, to apply. And after you apply to the job, after you apply to the internship, you'll get an assessment sent to your email that also needs to be completed before Thursday at midnight.
Yep, and actually just to sort of voice over Nicole there, Nicole and I are both in PwC. Just to reiterate, those 3 positions, they are currently only available for women. I can't exactly see like who is joined today, but if you are a female student, sophomore, interested in any of the cyber or technology consulting positions that Nicole mentioned, definitely apply. And despite this being an internship, right? If you're going in, you're doing what you need to be doing, you're showing passion, you're showing interest, that typically does roll over to a full-time position. So, if you just get through this one recruiting activity, fill that application, get that assessment in, go do a good job in that internship, you might be sitting at PwC 2 years from now, and that'll be that. So just wanted to plug in that as well.
I was going to say Erie also has a lot of positions open at the moment. So our summer spots for 2023 are full for interns, but we should be starting our summer 2024 interns applications in October timeframe. So around the time the IST Career Fair starts back up again, we should have positions open. But at the moment, for any of the alumni who may be looking for positions, we do have a couple of software engineering analyst positions, project management, as well as like administration, like admins available. So erieinsurance.com/careers. I'm pretty sure for all of our companies, if you just search the company and then /careers, something will come up. And feel free to like use me as a resource as well. My LinkedIn, all of our LinkedIns are here. So feel free to message us on the side as well to see, where you may fit in.
We are not hiring currently for early in career. We do have, if there's alumni on, we have consultant and senior consultant roles. I will say the biggest area that we're hiring for and cannot hire enough is in our cyber defense practice. So incident response and cloud security. I think those are some of the areas I recommend everyone to specialize in right now. I don't think any company right now can get enough talent in those areas. But I will say too, just from my opinion on where you should be looking for early in career, those rotational programs are huge. My program was about 2 years long, and I was able to rotate through incident response, through third-party risk governance, and really just develop skills that I would not have been able to do otherwise if I was kind of jumping right into a specific role. But it also helps you build your network and find areas that you didn't think you would like that you did like. I did not think I would like incident response. It's kind of a stressful area, but I got to try for 6 months and turns out I loved it. So I definitely recommend that. If you're looking for, your first role out of college, those rotational programs are really, really helpful to get you into that right role for you down the road.
Victoria, to follow up on yours, it also helped me solidify that I wanted to be in cybersecurity, because our ARES rotational program, it's throughout the IT. And then if you wanted to take a few more rotations, whether it be in investigative services, third-party risk management, privacy, but I ended up, it was a wild card rotation. I did as an business analyst and like a lead analyst on a project. I was like, I absolutely hate this. Like, I cannot do this. So it also like helps you solidify like where you want to end up in, because you now have experience of 3 other rotations that you've done. So highly recommend those.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. We just have about under 10 minutes left. So before we wrap things up, I wanted to ask one more question. What is the most important thing you have learned throughout your career and personal journey thus far? Or if you don't want to answer that, you could just if you have any additional thoughts to share with the audience before we close up the program.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I've ever learned and I'm still taking to heart is that failure is just a word. I think there will be plenty of times where you might make a mistake in your career, you might choose the wrong option. As long as you look at it as just that and not take it to heart, you're able to move on quickly, right? I think what's great about our industry is there's so much you can be doing. You might end up, again, why I recommend rotational programs, there are roles that might not be specific or perfect for you right now, the best fit. But there's always another area that you can try that will end up being perfect for you. So just making sure that, if there's ever any challenges in your career that you come through, you just accept it as that, right? Be adaptable, accept, we're all going to make mistakes, and just move forward. Don't take it too much to heart.
I think for me, and this is sort of a broad, takeaway, but the importance of work-life balance. I mean, I think this goes for everyone, right? Not necessarily just women, but I've also found in my experience through college and work that women in technology, we always want to put in our like 110%, right, into everything we do. And oftentimes it's difficult to maintain that balance of like choosing ourselves and our needs over work or over whatever it is that comes up in life, right? We want to do a good job. We want to make our presence known. But I think in order for us to truly be, successful in our career and as successful as ourselves, right, we need to be happy, and that means cultivating that balance, right, and prioritizing our mental well-being, our physical well-being. So that's something that I think I'm still trying to figure out till today, and I probably will continue to do so. But just to keep that in mind and understand that that should always be one of your main priorities in life, I think is very important.
I'm going to kind of combine what Victoria and Nandita said. Find a healthy way to cope with the stress, because, you're going to fail and you need that work-life balance. And it's important to do it in a healthy way, whether it's meditating or painting or running or whatever it might be for you. That helps you so much take away from work and, again, build towards your work-life balance. But it's really important to, stay sharp and stay healthy with all of that. So I would encourage you to, find that outlet that works for you.
Kind of piggybacking off what Annie said, just you're always gonna have roadblocks and changes and transitions in your life, and learning how to deal with those and cope with those stressful moments in life is definitely really important. Healthy outlets. And like Nandita said, work-life balance is really important. And I think you have to advocate for yourself, and speak about your needs, and also find a company that values you and puts importance on your needs and yourself outside of just being an employee.
Yeah, I would have to agree with everything that everyone said, right? Mental health is so important. If you're not 100% yourself, you can't give 100% to the company. PTO is there to use. You may think you're being an awesome employee by not taking any time off. Completely wrong. Take that time off, go live your life, even if it's just to like spend a day in your home watching Netflix. Like, do that because that's your mental health. And take care of that. Take care of yourself. Also foster relationships because again, going back to that whole following up with your network, just keep in check with people. You may not know how they're doing, you may not know how you're doing. So again, continue fostering those relationships, because one day, you may never know who needs your help. So continue doing that. Also, don't ever be afraid to teach someone, because one of the things that I learned in the industry was, some of the more senior members of the teams were a little bit hesitant in teaching the younger, newer to career people, just because they're like, oh, they're going to take our jobs, they're going to do that. You may be one day in that position where now you have to teach newer people. So use your experiences and then continue mentoring them. You want to see that them succeed. Maybe someone didn't do that for you, but you want to do that for others. So continue helping people.
All great answers. I just want to say we're about to end our program here. So I want to say thank you all so much for joining us and giving your advice and your stories, sharing everything that you've learned so far throughout your career and your life experiences. You were all very encouraging for me as a woman in STEM, so I'm sure many of our audience members were also inspired as well. I also want to say thank you to those who are attending and watching this program virtually. We appreciate the support. So if anyone has any last words they'd like to say, we have about 2 minutes left. But if not, that's the end of our program. So thank you all for coming and hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.